Someone you love is dying. There's no hospital down the road, no machine beeping out their vital signs, no doctor to tell you how much time is left. Just you, them, and the fire. And when their breathing finally stops, there's no funeral home to call, no priest with a script, no established answer for what happens next. So what do you do? What did ancient humans actually do when someone died? Deliberate burial isn't a recent invention tied to religion or civilization. Archaeological evidence shows humans were intentionally burying their dead more than 100,000 years ago. Tens of thousands of years before writing, before agriculture, before anything resembling organized religion existed. Grief, it turns out, is older than God. Let's start with the evidence. At Qafzeh Cave and Skhul Cave in Israel, archaeologists uncovered burials roughly 100,000 years old. Bodies weren't just left where they fell. They were placed deliberately, often curled into a fetal position, sometimes with objects arranged around them. Deer antlers, animal bones, tools that served no practical purpose to a corpse. Someone chose to put those things there. Someone made a decision about how a body should be positioned and what should surround it. That's not instinct. That's ritual. Ritual requires something remarkable, a shared understanding among multiple people about what death means, agreed upon without a single written rule to guide them. Then there's ochre. Red ochre, a pigment made from iron-rich clay, shows up again and again at ancient burial sites, sometimes covering the body, sometimes scattered around it. Ochre had no survival function for a corpse. Its only role was symbolic. Color, meaning, maybe the visual language of blood and life, applied to someone who no longer had either. They thought it mattered enough to gather the pigment, grind it down by hand, prepare it carefully, and use it deliberately on someone who could no longer see it. This wasn't unique to our species. At Shanidar Cave in Iraq, archaeologists found Neanderthal remains buried with unusual concentrations of plant pollen nearby. Some researchers argue the pollen could have been introduced by burrowing insects rather than mourners. But the broader pattern at Shanidar is harder to dismiss. Individuals with severe injuries and disabilities survived for years, which means someone was caring for them long before death. Care for the dying and the dead wasn't unique to modern humans. A different human species still buried its own with apparent purpose. Elephants have been observed returning to the bones of dead herd members, touching them gently with their trunks. Chimpanzees have been documented carrying dead infants for days or even weeks, grooming them, reluctant to let go. Orcas have been recorded pushing dead calves through the water for over 2 weeks. Grief appears to run deep in social, intelligent species. What made human grief different wasn't the emotion itself. It was what humans did with it, deliberately, symbolically, leaving physical evidence 100,000 years later. Imagine someone in the group is dying. Not suddenly, usually, but over days, sometimes weeks. People take turns sitting with them, keeping them warm, offering water, talking to them even when they can no longer respond, holding their hand through a night that everyone knows will likely be one of the last. In a group of 15 to 50 people who depend on each other for everything, a death touches the entire community immediately. When the person dies, the body isn't hidden away or dealt with quickly. It stays with the group, sometimes for a full day or more. People react openly, crying, wailing, sitting in silence, whatever the moment calls for, without embarrassment. Someone prepares red ochre, grinding the pigment down between 2 stones, mixing it with fat or water into a paste. It's applied to the body, maybe the face, maybe the whole form, a final act of care. Then comes the burial itself. A shallow grave, dug by hand with stone tools, is prepared close to camp. The body is placed carefully, often curled on its side, in the same fetal position it once occupied before birth. Objects are chosen to go with it. A favorite tool, maybe. A string of shell beads, something that meant something. This isn't efficient. It takes time and effort that could be spent hunting or gathering. They did it anyway, every time, for tens of thousands of years. In the days afterward, behavior changes. People are quieter. Routines shift slightly. Less hunting, more sitting, more talking about the person who's gone. Their name might come up around the fire at night, folded into the stories the group already tells about ancestors and the past. This is how someone gets remembered, not through a headstone, but through being spoken about, again and again, retold to children who never even met the person. Then, around 10,000 years ago, agriculture reshaped this too. Permanent settlements meant permanent burial grounds, cemeteries, tombs, monuments. Organized religion emerged and offered structured answers. An afterlife, gods, judgment, doctrine, things that hadn't existed before. Grief stopped being something the whole small group processed together in real time and slowly became something managed by specialists, priests, and eventually funeral directors. Today, death is often outsourced almost entirely. A hospital manages the dying, frequently in a room the family doesn't choose. A funeral home manages the body, embalming and dressing, and presenting it in ways designed to look peaceful rather than real. A scheduled service, sometimes weeks later, manages the morning, compressed into an afternoon, followed by an expectation that you return to work shortly after. Grief has a timeline now, one that rarely matches how long it actually takes, one that often ends long before the feeling does. Ancient humans didn't have any of that. They didn't have doctrine to explain what death meant. What they had was each other. Ochre ground by hand, a grave dug close to camp, and a name that kept getting spoken until it became part of the fire-lit stories that held the group together. They didn't need an explanation for death to grieve it properly. They just needed each other, and that was enough to leave evidence lasting 100,000 years.